Hi, my name is Jake Thompson. Thank you for joining me this week on another edition of the Weekly Fumble, where I'll be bringing you the top 4 college football games of Week 1. And yes, Week 1 is here. The full first Saturday of college football is here. I'm excited. I hope you guys are pumped. And let me just say that this is the Weekly Fumble's 7th year that I've been doing this. I can't believe that it's 7 years in the making of the Weekly Fumble. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to bring you more and more games this season because there's going to be a lot of great games going on this year for the 2019 season. Now let's get it started with Game 1. Boise State visits Florida State in Tallahassee. Remember, this game was supposed to be played in Jacksonville, but they moved it to Tallahassee because of the hurricane, and they moved it up to noon Eastern time. And it's going to be a great game. I think both teams are similar in so many ways. You got Alex Hornibrook, the graduate transfer from Wisconsin, playing at Florida State. You got a second-year coach in Willie Taggart to see what he does. And I think that Boise State is going to be a good average team this season. If they beat Florida State in the first game, that gives them a whole lot of confidence moving forward in the season, but I don't think it's enough. I think Florida State, Alex Hornibrook, the lefty, throws all over Boise State, and I think Florida State at home at a noon Eastern time kickoff wins the football game. And you got to put into consideration that Boise State has to travel from Boise, Idaho, all the way down on the East Coast, and it's going to be tough for the Broncos. I like Florida State. Now the next game, number 3 Georgia visits Vanderbilt. Now this is the first time that Georgia has faced a conference foe in Week 1 since '95. It's the first time they faced a conference foe in Week 1 on the road since '94. Now, you ask yourself, why are you doing this game, Jake? Well, let me tell you why. Because Vanderbilt is licking their chops from last season. They finished off 6-7. Their head coach, Derek Mason, he's a great guy. He's a great coach. He's going to have that team ready to play. And if Georgia doesn't step on their toes early, I think that this game could be a barn burner going forward. But I think Georgia's just too strong. They're going to beat them early. They're going to get out to a huge lead. And I think the Dogs will win the football game by a big margin. Now, the next game, this game is being played in Atlanta, Georgia. Duke and Alabama. Now, the number 2 Crimson Tide, they got a lot of guys hurt. They got some guys suspended. And you ask yourself, Jake, is there any way that Duke has a chance against the Crimson Tide? And I just want to shake my head no, because I don't think that they do. I think that the Crimson Tide are just too powerful. They're too good. This might be their best team that we've seen out of Nick Saban. And I just think that Tua Tagovailoa is going to throw all over this Duke defense. And you got to understand that Duke is bringing out a freshman quarterback, and it's just going to be tough to beat the Crimson Tide. I like the Crimson Tide to win 38-3 and cover that spread by 34.5. Now, the big game. This game has been played in Fort Worth, Texas, number 11, Oregon, and number 16, Auburn. Now, Pac-12, SEC, this might be the best Pac-12 team, Oregon, that we've seen, and this might be the 4th best team in the SEC West in Auburn. Now, Bo Nix decided to get the start. They named him the starter at Auburn. I don't know how that's going to fare out. He must have shown in spring camp, he must have shown a lot of potential to Gus Malzahn. Now, Gus Malzahn's calling the plays for the Tigers. And let me say, in that 2010 season, when the Tigers beat the Ducks in the national title, Gus Malzahn was the offensive coordinator. I don't know what that's worth, but I'm just telling you that if Auburn comes into this game with a whole lot of confidence. Now, granted, Oregon has a great quarterback on the other side in Justin Herbert, and he can throw that ball. He's the number 1 guy on Mel Kiper's big board to get drafted in the 2020 draft. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting game. I think many people have said that Auburn might have the best defensive line in the country, which is very debatable. We'll see in this game if they can match up against Justin Herbert and that offense. But I think at the end, Oregon makes one more play than Auburn does. And I think that they're going to win the football game. It's going to be a low-scoring game, 17-13. Oregon beats Auburn in Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm excited to see that game and the rest of the games in Saturday today. Thank you for joining me this week on another edition of the Weekly Fumble. I'll be back next week. I'm Jake Thompson. Salute.